Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Ridge Community Church podcast. My name is John. I'm one of the pastors at the Ridge, and our vision is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. So we want to bring you something hopeful and helpful for your everyday life, whether you've been following Jesus for a while or you're still trying to figure out exactly what you do believe about God. Now, you'll find on this podcast things that'll help with conversations about marriage and parenting and mental health and work, practical things to help you in your faith journey, and a lot more. So whether you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app or you're watching on YouTube, be sure to follow and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the hopeful and helpful conversations. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ridge Podcast. I'm excited to share today's conversation with all of you that I got to have with the Greenfield campus pastor and Oak Creek campus pastor, Tyler Volkers and Forrest Anderson. It was a super fun conversation about something called Treat Your Street, which is a great opportunity each Halloween during trick-or-treat season to really invest in the people around you in your neighborhood and get a chance to meet them. And I'll let Tyler and Forrest share a little bit more, but it really is a cool opportunity. And so we talk about how do you do Treat Your Street, why is it impactful, maybe some of the heart behind it, and a lot more. So this is my conversation with Tyler and Forrest. Well, hi, Tyler and Forrest. Thanks for coming on to the Ridge Podcast.
Dude, excited to be back. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, brother. I'm here. It's time to go. Let's do this.
All right. So this, I know there's some mixed opinions on this, but we have firmly reached fall. And curious, do you guys like fall? Is that one of your seasons? I know, Forrest, you're a huge summer guy. So is the fall like a sad day for you?
No, actually, fall is like the extension of summer now in like Wisconsin. It's actually beautiful. Like the weather is typically beautiful, especially as you kind of get through October. Like it's nice. The colors are amazing. Like you could travel around and see just like the change of the season is awesome. And it's usually pretty sunny. It's not raining too much yet.
Mm-hmm. Love fall. Love all the things, the cooler temps. The kids' sports activities are picking up. The colors, as Forrest mentioned. Only thing I don't really like about it, it's just darker earlier and stays darker later. But I mean, other than that, yeah, let's keep it going. We could stay here. I'm just not a fan of what comes after.
Do you mind running in the dark? Are you okay with that, or do you like your headlamp set up? I got
my headlamp, got my reflections. Yeah. Don't hit me, people.
Yeah. Okay, how about Halloween? I know that there's also some mixed opinions about that.
In my household, we're big fans of Halloween, and especially like our neighborhood. And growing up here in Milwaukee, like Halloween's just a big thing around here. This was kind of the last hurrah that we get to be outside, hanging out with other people, kind of before winter sets in. So, Halloween's always been a big thing in our neighborhood and in my family and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, growing up, we would do Halloween, but it was kind of like that two-sided approach to it. Like I had some members of my family that, to quote the great Michael Scott, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. They would get weirded out around Halloween and just kind of think a little bit of like, hey, is this an extra, like satanic portal, to do some stuff? And obviously, I think there's some, spiritual warfare things we got to have some wisdom about as far as choices goes. But I've grown to love it as for the opportunity that Forrest just mentioned. Like, hey, here's an opportunity to get out, hang out with your community, your neighborhood. I mean, you actively have people out on the streets, going out to get to know each other, serve kids. It can be a blast. So I love the time. And actually, it's become a weekend for us with our neighbors in our neighborhood, which is just a lot of fun before it gets really dark and everyone goes inside for the winter.
Yeah, I feel like anything, right? If you take it to an extreme, if you take it to a place that makes it not a great place, then it can get into some weird sides of Halloween. But I feel like for the most part, people are pretty good, at least in my experience, about having it be something that is just a more fun opportunity to get together, hang out, eat candy. I know we got some sweet tooths here. Which maybe my starter question should have been, what's your favorite candy, and why is it Reese's peanut butter cups?
And why are there Reese's peanut butter cups? Because yes. the ratio of chocolate to peanut butter is amazing. So, yep. Okay,
so we have for the last several years we've talked about something called Treat Your Street,
Mhm.
So I'm curious, maybe for somebody who's never heard of it before, or they've kind of heard it in passing, what's the best way that you guys like to describe Treat Your Street? Maybe Tyler, you could go first.
Yeah, way I like to describe Treat Your Street is, hey, think of the idea of trick or treat hours that may be happening at your home, and let's get a couple steps to be more intentional about the opportunity that we have. So going above and beyond just handing out candy, to kids that may show up. And here's what I mean by the opportunity, John. What our current trends are telling us is that in our country, Halloween is like the second most uh, dollars, spent, compared to Christmas. Like we're spending billions of
Wow.
dollars in costumes, candy, decorations. And so people love Halloween. And so I think there's an opportunity that we have to see as followers of Jesus, not to give into culture and culture's sakes and all that, but really to be wise and say, man, here's an opportunity that we have that if we get a little intentional and serve our community well, it allows us to start or further relationships with people in our neighborhood. And so I just call it, hey, let's just take a step above to serve our neighborhood well during the trick or treat hours to further those relationships with people that maybe we don't know and probably definitely aren't a part of a church.
Yeah, I love that idea of just like serving them well. I think that kind of portrays it pretty well. Forrest, was there anything you'd kind of like to add to that?
No, I mean, really just the only aspect of it about it is like people are already out and about in Halloween, right? We know that it's like, kids and not just kids walking around neighborhoods, but parents walking around with kids in neighborhoods. And so our vision is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. And it's not about asking people to walk through the doors of our church. It's about building relationships in their homes, in their neighborhoods. And we just have such a huge opportunity in Halloween because people are already out and about. They're walking around, they're introducing themselves. And so how can, like Tyler said, you just take some intentionality in a holiday that people are already out and about and just use that to grow relationships with people.
What does that look like, maybe like in just like a practical sense for you guys previously?
Forrest, when do you start?
Yeah, I think, it could be as simple as instead of putting a bowl of candy out in front and say, take one, please, which, nobody ever takes one anyways. But it's as simple as actually sitting there with the bowl and having conversations with people that they come up with you. I mean, it could be as simple as that to as elaborate as there's people in my neighborhood that throw, basically a party. We've got one of our neighbors that they have a little tractor and they put hay on it and they drive it up and down our street with like a little hay wagon ride for kids in our neighborhood and to make it bad. So really, it's as simple as doing one thing to really just begin to engage with other people and to build relationships with them, to get to know them. It's as simple as that. But you can go as elaborate as you want. I mean, it's an awesome holiday just to have just crazy things that you do.
So somebody hears that and they're like, "Oh, but I don't want to be awkward. I don't want to make it weird." Like, what do you do to make sure that it's not an awkward thing?
Well, it is awkward. There's people, grown adults coming up to you in costumes. It is going to be awkward. But I think that's what actually makes it.
Way to turn the fears aside there, Forrest. Yeah.
Oh, but I think that's what actually make the awkwardness is already there. Like that's what makes it like a great opportunity to converse with people because the expectation is there, right? The kids come up and they have to say something awkward like trick or treat. And the whole idea of how that even started is weird and awkward in the first place. But just the idea of like, it's already kind of a situation that's, that people are already prepared for that. And so it's just really just use that to your advantage and just to be able to just say, hi, hey, who are you? I live here. Where do you guys live? Are you guys from the neighborhood? Simple questions where you're just asking to really get to know who kind of like where they're from. Are they right around your neighborhood or you got one of those neighborhoods that gives out big candy bars so everybody comes from outside your neighborhood to it?
Yeah. How about you, Tyler? What have you guys done for Treat Your Street?
Yeah, and we've done a couple things, and I think Forrest said, "Hey, let's just start taking the steps above just the bowl of candy." And if you haven't done that at all, like if you've just been, "Hey, I'm turning out and the lights are off," start there, but then start building up. Like start with the full size candy bars and just say, "Man, we're going to serve and bless that way." One thing that's worked with us, in addition to that, is doing something for the adults. And I'm not. Some places will do, adult beverages or whatnot. That's fine. But if that's not your mojo, what we did one time and had a great success with this has been, hey, we just bought extra brats or whatnot, and we boiled them, and then we're just grilling them out in the driveway, kind of handing them out, and having fun with the adults as they're getting there, and then they're, that's a great conversation piece of like, oh, hey, what a great idea, that you have a brat or something. S'mores up in the front before, so you can grill
Ooh.
those up front. We've done some games out in the driveway area, and also just hooking up your place where you can have some music playing out. Just are simple ways just to kind of create a moment and create a vibe. But like Forrest said, it's all about putting yourself out there to have a conversation. I think we've lost the art of making new friends. And so this just allows us to get to know and talk and ask some questions like, yeah, do you live around here? How long you been living here? If they have kids and they look like your kids' age, hey, are they at the school? And you start trying to put some connections together of where they may be in the neighborhood as you're building relationships.
And use your kids. Like your kids are a huge opportunity. Like your kids, like as some other kid comes by and they've got parents with them, say, hey, do you know that kid? Does that kid go to your school? And if they do, say, oh, can you run up and say hi and just even use them to introduce you? Like it's awesome when you walk up and say, hey, I'm Aria's dad. And they say, oh, I'm with her. And, it's cool. And it just gives you instant connection right away. And, gives you kind of a safe place to begin a conversation with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great for us. And piggyback off of that too, I learned this at our fall festival that we did the other day, or just reminded of this again too. I might be a little weirded out sometimes, if a grown adult just talks with me, out of the blue. I'm a little bit more introverted than Forrest. Probably not surprised there. But here's what's true of all of us, with kids. When someone treats and serves our kids well, we notice that. And so I was having fun at the fall festival, just like joking with some of the kids in their costumes, like, "Hey, you're Donatello." I'm like a Leonardo fan. You get them to laugh, and you're engaging with them, or they're wearing a Marvel thing. Hey, what is your favorite superhero? And just being friendly to the entire family, including the kids, goes a very long way as well.
How helpful is it to like pick something that comes more natural to you, right? Like you mentioned the idea of like brats or grilling. So if you're a food person, is that maybe that's the lane you stay in where you're like, man, I love grilling. I'm going to do something like that versus maybe something else might work better for somebody else.
Yeah, I think so. I think like you want to do something that makes you feel comfortable. Like it's, like as we said before, it is going to be kind of awkward, right? We're putting ourselves out there. So it's going to feel kind of a little bit uncomfortable, especially for people, like Tyler that are a little less outgoing than some of us go. But so I think picking like, what is that thing that that you've got, that you have an easy ability to connect with other people too about, right? So it's like, what is that thing? Like Tyler talked about, hey, he noticed that somebody had a costume on about, some sort of characters. And I know he's a Marvel guy, right? So even if you're having those conversations, you find those things like, oh, I know Marvel. I want to, speak in that, where somebody like me who's not a Marvel fan, I'm not going to know that. So that's not going to be my wheelhouse, but I'll figure out, oh, he's an athlete. He's a sports guy. Like he's trying to be Aaron Rodgers or whatever, try to connect with kind of those things. And so I think both on what you're attempting to do and just how you start your conversations, you want to make sure you're kind of staying within your comfortable lane a little bit.
Yeah, I think you really illustrated that point well for us because I'm pretty sure Tyler's a DC guy, which I know all superheroes are probably the same to you, but anyway,
he's the Marvel. I don't know. Come on. I mean,
he
said Ninja Turtles. Are they
more to Marvel after the movies as of late?
Fair enough.
That's a whole other podcast we can dive into.
Well, how about this? I do want to get into a little bit of some of the more heart pieces and how do you look forward to the future. But before we get there, just quickly, is there anything that you'd give somebody some caution? Hey, maybe don't try to do this thing, or maybe don't necessarily talk about this right away, or don't. This might not be a great perspective for going after Tweet Your Street. Is there any like things, like maybe some advice that you just give in that direction?
Yeah, I would say don't start with where you go to church. That's not a question to begin with. I think the whole beginning of building a relationship with somebody is to actually get to know them, try to understand them. So you want to do more listening in that aspect of it, but really just try to get to know who they are and listen for just even like it could be something that comes up as they're telling who they are that might be something in a way that you could serve them in some way. So it could be like, hey, they're talking about where they live and they share that, well, my wife or my ex-wife lives somewhere else. So, okay, they went through a divorce, right? That could be something that you can listen to that say, okay, sooner or later, I know that he's a single dad. Maybe that's, something I'd speak into, but it's really just kind of asking open-ended questions that just get to know them. And don't start with church right off the bat.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with that. There's so much research that is showing and studies and surveys that are showing that the mistrust of churches and individuals is so high right now for for a number of different reasons. And we're not going to get them to trusting church within a conversation over trick or treat. That's not the goal. That's not the goal at all. But what is effective and what we see again and again is that individuals that we can bring the hope of Jesus to, they may end up trusting a Christian long before they would even think about going to a church. And so your goal at this point, and I would say, and I'm saying this to myself as well, is my goal is I want to invest in this relationship enough where I begin to build trust with that person. And it's going to vary based on your relationship already within the neighborhood. For some people, I'm just going to get to know their name. And then I may just start praying for them behind closed doors and then pray for other opportunities to get to talk to them. Others, maybe I know their name already, and it just allows to have a little bit more of a conversation again of like, building that relationship and just establishing trust. And we don't want to move faster than the speed of trust there. So I would also encourage, because I get for some of us, some well-meaning followers of Jesus might say, hey, I'm going to throw invite cards or tracts or all sorts of things and with the full-size candy bar or whatnot. I would refrain from that. The goal is for them to get them to trust you. And just start building trust in you and then move with God's timing on what that may be. And that's okay. If they trust you, that's great. God's going to use you in their life to make a difference. We really believe that.
Yeah,
one of the things that
go ahead, Forrest.
One of the things that my wife does every year to kind of help to like kind of have fun with it and to build even like a little bit of it more, I guess you could say trust as it is. She always puts out too like a food drive kind of bucket out in front too. That helps. So when people walk by, they see that it's not just about, it's about serving others as well in other ways too. So as they get to know who she is, because she's, she's great at this and has great conversations out there, they'll say, oh, hey, they care about other people. And so their trust level automatically kind of starts coming up when they see that it's not just about us and what we're doing, but about what we're doing for others as well.
Great idea. Let's get Tracy on the podcast. That's awesome.
Yeah. It does sound like there probably does need to be a little bit of making sure your heart's in the right place with this whole process too, because I think it's really hard to care about connecting with somebody if you don't care about connecting with them or meeting them. And so, and not having it be like an ends to a means or, we talked about like it's a person. It's not a project you're working on or something like that. There's a real person that you care about. You want, maybe you want more for their life, and you hope they experience the hope of Jesus. And like, yeah, there's an incentive to that, but it's because of the person, not because of a to-do list, checklist thing that I think a lot of people can have that hang up on. And I think that's where you connecting your heart to the goal of it kind of changes that. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's spot on. Spot on.
Cool. Okay. So, you mentioned, you've mentioned previously, Tyler, I know that there's the heart behind it is that it's more than just a hangout. Like it really is. Even though it is a hangout in a capacity. What are the types of things that make it more than a hangout? Like, what is it? The types of conversation you have? Is it there's some prayer going on behind doors? Like, what is that? What needs to happen to have that be the case?
Yeah, absolutely, John. A great question. I think the main thing that I'm trying to do with the intentionality is my motives and my heart of where we're going to take this. And I think, John, we've talked about this a little bit before. I call it the slalom of, hey, where's this relationship going? And then how do I ski or steer this in a way that appropriately would make sense to start going below or beneath the surface? And so for some people, if I don't know them, getting to know their name and then start praying for them. Maybe I keep a notes app of different names of my neighbors that I just start there. It's just the thumbs up on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, this came up as fascinating. But that may be a goal, but then others, it might be how can I start to ask some questions where I begin to get to know a little bit of their story. I think Forrest gave some great prompts. How long you've been living here? Hey, what do you love about this neighborhood? And just start asking some questions, or what do you love about the school district? and starting to hear their story of that, which then may allow some opportunities for me to invite the other person over, or you start hearing some needs that you might look that you can serve. We talk about that blessed strategy a lot. I start listening for things that I can do to move further down that strategy with them.
I love Tyler using a skiing analogy.
Great.
It's like me saying I'm using a marathon analogy. That's great, Tyler. Well done.
People say talk about running so much. I'll just talk about things I don't know.
Yes.
Forrest, is there anything you'd add to that?
No, I think he actually really nailed it really well. I think the idea is you've got different relationships with different people, and people have different relationships with other people, and you're just trying to figure out, okay, how do I begin a relationship? How do I build this relationship? And it's really about that intentionality behind it. It's really not about making it more than a hangout. Mm-hmm. It's about what are you doing during a hangout to get to know people. Mm-hmm. That's really at the end of the day what it is. Like, how are you getting to know them? So it's not saying that it's more than a hangout. I mean, you want it to be internally to you, but it's not like you're trying to do all of these different crazy things that make it bigger than a hangout, or you've got all this pressure and all this other stuff. What you want to do is you just want to say, okay, we're naturally going to hang out together. How can I use that time to intentionally get to know you better, get to take our relationship to that next level, whatever it is, depending on how that relationship already sits with that person.
Is there anything that you can do? Because we talk about it's like a first step, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe a second step if you've known them a little bit, but allows you to have like bigger conversations. What allows it to turn into like, okay, this is part of the journey, not just I do a treat your street thing. I did it last year, and then I did it, and then I didn't talk to my neighbor for the next year. And oh, great, I saw him again at the next treat your street. Is there like, oh, I'm going to plan an event, or I'm going to like, what are you thinking through to make it so that it is actually like a process instead of just a one-time thing?
I'll tell you what has happened over the years in our neighborhood. So again, this is not I think Tyler nailed it earlier, right? This is not you're taking them from first, walking through your door for the first time to following Jesus within that 5 minutes you're sitting with them. But over the course of years, what we've done is our treat your street turns into, okay, it's kids and trick or treat. We've got a fire pit out there. When we do it, and then we put chairs around the fire pit. So as it gets dark, the adults all kind of come together at our house, and a few of us sit there. And then the later it gets, kind of a few people drop out. And then those last couple of us have conversations. Mm-hmm. But it's taken years. Like the first year, like, oh, maybe a couple people kind of came and hung out. And then the next year, a couple other people came, stayed later. And then those people that have really begun to develop relationships with over years stay a little bit later. And then you could begin to actually start having some of those heartfelt, real conversations to find out what's really going on in their life and how you can kind of begin to speak into it a little bit. But that takes years and years of development. And that's, to me, for us, what we've seen is over years of doing it, where it turns into more than just this one event at that one time. It's that commitment to just getting to know people and getting to know them over time.
So what I'm hearing you say there is, if it starts off, you do it this year and you have a couple conversations, but a lot of people you just kind of see, and maybe now you're a friendly face, don't necessarily be discouraged, because this is just part of that process of the long term, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Tyler, would you add anything to the kind of like how can you make it go beyond that step?
Yeah, I think Forrest is dead on with that, and you start seeing some of that compound returns as you do this again and again, and not just treat your street, but also throughout the other years, other part of the year where we have different opportunities. But I think there's also some opportunities to put ourselves out there again and capitalize on, hey, maybe there was one really significant conversation that stood out to you from that night or whatnot. And, do you have that person's number to text them and say, hey, do you want to come over for a drink or a meal together or hang out, something that would be appropriate and comfortable for both of you? Maybe it's come sit in the backyard again, with a bonfire to have one of those moments and just hang out together. Maybe it's a few of them. And then that can help take that conversation there. I mean, when we talk about the blessed strategy for your one, and John, I hope you put in the show notes just the link to some of the Your One stuff because we revamped a lot of those videos and trainings as of late to help people invest in their one and know what we're talking about with that. But that can maybe lead for an opportunity for you to hear more of their story and maybe eventually share part of your story as well. And that can help. Just you get to know them and care for them as well. So I challenge everyone to at least reach out to one person after Treat Your Street to spend more time together, whether it's for a meal or a drink.
Well, I think that stands like that. I think that really supports what Forrest was talking about when you get to know them and you hear about some of their story and what they're going through. And maybe you find out through the conversation that they're a runner. And so you're like, awesome, sweet. Tyler, I know you're a big runner. Hey, let's, why don't we want to go for a run? You know, a couple weeks or something like that. And you go for a run together or whatever that is, where you're actually paying attention and you're engaging and you're listening. And you can actually build a friendship with somebody.
Yeah,
you know, like a real friendship.
Yeah, and yeah. Hey, we're in the same school district. Oh, we both go to the same gym together. You know, let's like all the things, and it's just amazing. You see how God's working behind the scenes that you can capitalize on that way.
That's awesome.
I think one of the things to always like think about too is God's already at work in this, right? So God's already at work in this relationship in their life in some way. And it's like, okay, how can you kind of hear for where that's already happening? How can you kind of feel where that's already happening and just use that to kind of guide where you go next with it.
That's really good. I think that kind of speak to like, hey, before even Treat the Street happens, hey, are you praying for that event that's happening? Like, are you saying, hey, God, bring some conversations that would really be helpful, or who should I be investing in? Who should I follow up with? I think in like inviting him and asking him to be a part of it, I think is, I mean, if we really believe that God's going to move in the lives of the people around us, then we should be doing that, right? Awesome. Well, hey, as we kind of wrap up, is there anything that you'd still like to share? You're like, oh man, if somebody's thinking about doing Treat Your Street, I really hope that they do this. I know we have a website with some great links on there that we'll put in the show notes, and I'll talk more about that in the exit. But yeah, any last thoughts?
We all can do this. I mean, I think between Forrest and I, you see different lenses of outgoingness and extrovertedness and introvertedness. But that doesn't mean that we aren't called by God to invest in other people. And so even if you're like, hey, I'd rather stay inside and watch a horror film, you can do that. That's fine. But you can do this and find a way that it would just help you take a step outside of your comfort zone, and God's gonna move and bless it. So no personality excuses. Let's all go out there and treat our streets well.
Yeah. And I think, it's as simple as Jesus gave us two commands: love God and love others. And this is that love others part. And so maybe for a lot of you, it's not the most comfortable thing in the way, but this could be a really easy first step for you to take to begin to love others. Make it about them. It's not about you. It's not about you throwing the awesomest party or whatever out in their front lawn. It's about them. How do you make it about them and getting to know them and just loving others? Simple as that.
And have fun. Have fun doing it.
Oh, yeah. Have fun with it, man. Have fun.
Yeah. This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you guys for sharing how you guys have done it in the past. And I think, I'd love to see just the neighborhoods and in our communities just really embrace this and really see some people that are experiencing hope of Jesus in a really powerful new way. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Thank you, John.
Well, that was my conversation with Tyler and Forrest. And this Halloween, this trick-or-treat season, I want to encourage you to do Treat Your Street. Head over to our website, theridgecc.com/treatyourstreet. You can also find that in the show notes. And you'll be able to find just a webpage with some resources, maybe even some conversation starters to help you out, some ideas on some different things that you can do, as well as even links to Amazon if you want to purchase some stuff for those things. And then also an opportunity to actually commit to treating your street. And we're actually going to do a drawing. We're going to give away some little prizes to help you treat your street for some people that make that commitment to really treat your street. And now, if you're interested at all in fact, I'd encourage you, if you want to invest in your one, you're curious how, you want to learn more, you can also find that on our website, theridgecc.com/year1. And we got some really great videos on, Tyler mentioned even like the blessed principle that kind of unpacks some of what that is. And it's just really helpful. If we want to bring the hope of Jesus into every home, we want everyone to experience the life change and the hope that we've experienced that comes from following Jesus. But it can be challenging to know how to do that. And so the year one page, year one videos, they really help us do it in a really practical and tangible way. So hope you'll do that. Hope you'll check out those resources. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ridge Podcast. And make sure that you like, subscribe, follow so that you don't miss any of the hopeful and helpful conversations.